Yeah, we had the leadership retreat this Friday and Saturday, and I came home last night really excited. Woke up this morning still excited for what God's doing. But throughout Friday and Saturday, there were multiple times where it's like the Holy Spirit, in some cases, almost ambushed us with something that we weren't planning on. Because, I did have an agenda. I do that because I feel good, like I feel like, if somebody says, did you prepare? I'm like, well, yeah, there's the agenda. I've worked on this. I do other things besides just 1 hour on Sunday, when you all even allow me to do that. Now, but the Holy Spirit, there was just multiple times where conversation would take us in a direction and we would all be pulled into it, and he would begin to show us what the transition is looking like. He would let us feel what the transition is feeling like. And I know everybody is feeling this at some level. There's different, obviously there's different perspectives, because with Linda and I stepping down, Joe and Amanda coming up as senior leaders, that's a huge adjustment. It's going to be a great adjustment, but it's still a huge adjustment. And I can just tell you that for those of us that are actually players in that adjustment, it's really a big deal. And it creates areas of tension, it creates areas of mourning, it creates areas of expectation. All those things are all happening, at any given moment. And I was aware, as different ones were sharing over the 2 days what they were feeling, and we were like dialoguing through that, and even counsel that we've received. How do we, what pieces of that do we use? What pieces of it do we not use? How does this transition reflect the house and move through our core values and what's being established? So how do we do all that? And we do it as a team, is how we do it. And I said at some point, I think I said it yesterday, but at some point along the way, we got talking about the culture of the house and wanting to make sure that, that continues, that, these are our core values, this is our history, this is where we've come from, this is what God's doing, all those things. And I made the comment that from my perspective, one, the culture of the house doesn't exist because I'm the senior leader. I get to go along with that. I get to play a part in stewarding it, but I didn't create it. And since I didn't create it, it's not up to me to keep it going, nor is it up to Joe and Amanda to keep it going. They're just going to step into their part of stewardship. But it's here because this is what Holy Spirit has breathed in us. We talk about experiments. Well, we are God's experiment, not my experiment. I'm in the Petri dish just like the rest of you. It's his experiment. It's his doing what he wants to do to establish what he's establishing, to create a unique expression. Not a better expression necessarily, just a unique expression. Because there are those that are looking for this unique expression. Not everyone. So he has other unique expressions. He's got other Petri dishes that people can find. And it works well for them there. So it's not that it's that we're better than, but we are vital to Christ's expression on the earth. Because all you keep coming back because something is happening. Right? When we, if it was just a movie theater, you'd go for 2 hours and watch the movie, spend $300 and then come home. But we're not. We're a community of believers. And so living life as a community is what brings us back. It's that It's that place where you might start and have been coming for a short period of time, so it still feels like you're visiting. It still feels like you're kind of that person. But there's that moment where that shifts. And all of a sudden, you're family. From our perspective, you were family the first day you walked in. But at that point, it's not our perspective that is going to carry it. It's your perspective. Because some people will come in and always stay visitor. They just don't let us in. I mean, they don't stay long. And oftentimes when they quit coming, they see that as from a negative, something negative that happened, when in reality, for the most part, I mean, negative things do happen, but for the most part, it happens because you just never let us in. I know with Pastor Bob and myself and others, the number of times that we've dealt with married couples and their marriages are a mess. They show up here, and you start to get to know them. You start working with them. They may make appointments, and then you realize after talking to them, well, the real problem is the two of you have never let the other one in. Marriage doesn't work if I can't get into my spouse's heart. If all I am is just another human occupying space, that's not marriage. And all of us that have become married, we all know that there's that place where love and especially infatuation, it'll carry us so far, but I can't keep it going if it's just infatuation. I can't keep it going if it's just sexual encounter. At some point, something has to happen where my heart integrates into the heart of my spouse. When that happens, amazing things can happen. If that doesn't happen, sooner or later you run out of energy. And you get up in the morning and you go, I ain't doing this anymore. I've had enough of this.
That's smart bomb. We just talked about coming out of a backpack.
And Bob said I didn't have to be good at it, I just had to throw it. Yeah, I'm not aiming it. Anybody sitting there going, he's talking about me, I'm not aiming. I'm just blowing up the whole room. Don't take it personal, but take it personal. Yeah. So that, we as a community, that's how community works. We're not community if I hold myself back and only remain a visitor. That's not community. You can come every week. You can stay for the meal. You can eat food with us. But we're not hitting community there. Community is when we let others in and say, okay, I think I'm ready to just do life with these people. Yeah. We've determined as community that whoever comes in the door, we're interested in doing life with you. And we're going to do our best to make that available. But at a certain point, you have to decide if you're going to do life with us. And that's your choice. I mean, we're not going to make that choice for you. We won't make that choice for you. But we will open the door. Has been said already. You can walk through. You can be a part. So I'm just really thankful that for these last 2 days, I said it was the Lord has been showing us things about what the transition is going to look like, feel like. There were some very prophetic moments over the course of 2 days that we just became aware that it was a prophetic moment. We thought we were doing something else. So God is very much in the midst of this transition. And he's very much designed it to bring us to a place of maturity, but also to bring us to that place where we reflect even better his nature and his character, where we become his imagers, even more so than we are. I pointed out, and this was something that just in my own head, it popped up because of something that was said. But so now we're starting into 2023. It was in 1983 that the Bible study in our house really coalesced and people started showing up on a regular basis. We were still calling ourselves a Bible study. We were scared to death to call ourselves a church. So you don't say that. But maybe we're a Bible study. So that's 40, that'll be 40 years this year. I can't remember which month it all happened, but it happened around 1983. So for 40 years, things have been happening. For 40 years, God has been doing this. When I think back over the leadership retreats, we haven't been doing those for 40 years. Trying to think, we probably did the first one, I don't know, around 2003 maybe? No, it wouldn't have been because I was too broken in 2003. I didn't want to go on a retreat with anybody. It would have been after that. Probably maybe 2005 or 6 after we had the encounters with Randy Clark and went to heal. Maybe it was in that time frame. But anyway, we started, okay, we need to get away for 2 days and actually just get together and see what God's going to say. So we've been doing that for a while. And the Lord continually speaks. And then yesterday I'm thinking, okay, from the time that we've been doing it, people have come and people have gone. In the 40 years that we've been somewhere between just a house church to this church, people have come and gone. Leadership has transitioned. This isn't the first transition in leadership by any means. It will be the first time I've quit. Only kidding. I love my job. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. That's really the theme. But God has always been faithful. You know, and I told the story some time ago of when we went through the shrinking time where people were leaving on a weekly basis, and we got smaller, and a particular family who was here and were a strong financially supporting family. Actually, they supported us enough that they almost were the only support we had. They left. And I remember a dear friend of mine who really meant good, but when I told him that this family had left, he goes, well, might as well just shut the church down then. I mean, if they're gone, you guys can't even make it. Well, I don't think that's why we were open in the first place. And so we didn't shut down. I went and got a job, but we didn't shut down. And then new people came in, and things changed because the church never was dependent on any one family or any one person, myself included. God's the one that set this thing. That's it. That's it. He is the one that is moving us forward, and he'll continue to do that. I think the best days of the house are ahead. I think there's certain things that I've done and that have been in leadership here, certain things we've done, seed we've sown, things we've released. And in my tenure here, I've not seen the fruit from that. If anything, it's left me with points of frustration because I really wanted to see the fruit. I invested a lot of things and time into trying to get that to happen. Kind of like the Jerry, you know, if I'm trying to strike the rock and I'm trying to make the phone calls, I'm trying to get the job done, and God's like, would you just let me do it? Would you just let me do it? And so it's that place of waiting on him and realizing he's the one that's going to do it. It's his providence that moves on our behalf. And so certain things that we've sown and have waited without seeing fruit, this next generation of leaders, I'm convinced you guys are going to see it. You're going to see it. We planted it, but you're going to harvest it. And you're going to do a great job. And it's going to go further. The house is going to go further than it's ever gone under my leadership. And so I'm excited about that. I'm also excited that I'll get to see it. That's the good thing about becoming kind of the grandfather is I'm going to get to see it all. I'm going to get to rejoice in it all. I'm going to get to party with you all, and I ain't doing any of the work. I just show up at the party and it's granddad's chair over there. Somebody get him a plate. Say, man, ain't so bad. It's not so bad. So our best days are ahead. We're going to talk more about that in weeks ahead. We're going to in February we'll have our annual church meeting, and there'll be a lot more presented then. But it was a really, really good time, and I'm really full of anticipation where we're going and what it's going to look like. I want to talk though today just a little bit. These are some new things that I'm experiencing through foundation builders, but these are also some really core principles. And I think where we are right now, different ones have said this over the last couple of years. I'm going to reiterate it again and hopefully put more emphasis on, because I think when we started talking about that, we had this much on the timeline and now we're down to this much on the timeline, but the requirement hasn't changed. So if we're not doing it, we've got less time than we had when the timeline was here. And this is just in the area of financial responsibility. There's a lot of things that are happening in our country. We kind of joke about it, but we all know that there are forces that push against us, whether I'm at putting gas in my car, or they're taking my car away and making me drive a battery, or I go and get groceries at the store. I don't care where you're at in interacting with our economy. Everything in the economy has kicked up to where it's taking more of me just to do what I did a year ago or 2 years ago. I don't have the same extra that I had. So there's certain things I can't change. I mean, I can go buy a couple chickens, but then I got to buy chicken feed. So, you have to weigh all that out. Is this an economically sound decision? Or are eggs, it's easier to get them at the store? Well, when eggs were $1.99, it's easier at the store. When eggs are $6 for the same 12 eggs, you're like, maybe a chicken ain't a bad idea. And chicken feed doesn't cost that much. And actually, chickens are pretty self-reliant. If you give them enough area, they'll scratch it out, and they'll eat about everything that's in the area and still lay eggs. So that's not a bad deal. So we have to weigh this stuff out, right? But the biggest issue, and this is where I want to put some emphasis today, is in this place of our personal debt. If right now you're carrying any amount of credit card debt, you've got to get rid of that. You've got to get rid of it. I mean, that just my sister and I were talking the other day. We have an equity line that we have for the business. We need that equity line. It allows us to do things that we do in business. But at the same time, almost every 2 weeks, we're getting a notice from the bank. It's gone up another %. So what we were paying, I think when we opened that equity line, we were paying, I'll just say we were paying 4%. We're pushing 9% right now. That's 5% that the bank is extracting from us above what it was already extracting from us at 4%. So we're at a point of going, you know what? That equity line allows for certain things, but it's too costly for that. So we're ditching it. Now, to ditch it, we got to pay off the balance. But it's no longer cost effective for us to do that. So I'm not an anti-debt person across the board. I'm not Dave Ramsey, right? I wish I would like to live the way Dave lives. I believe in what he says to get you there, so I'm not at all opposed to Dave. I just, in my life, there's always been a place where a certain amount of debt we tolerated because it allowed us to do a couple things, but consumer debt is not it. Our equity line allowed us to do business, which allowed us to make money. For the most part, your credit card debt, you've used it for stuff that you probably didn't even need, or you could have waited and built up your cash and then just bought it. And then when you buy it, you own it. Credit card, I got it. I don't own it. And now I'm paying more for it in the end than I paid for it in the beginning. It keeps coming, and I have no control over that, except to pay it off. That's the only control I have. No, that one won't go away if you ignore it. I tried that too. Yeah, that's not good advice there. So, and we started talking about consumer debt years ago here. But that timeline's coming down because what happens is when the economy overall prices increase, much of that I can scale back, I can make some adjustments, I do have some control over that. I don't have to, eat out as many times a week. I can cut back on, this or that. So I have some place where I can kind of push back against what they're pushing on me. My consumer debt, on the other hand, if all I'm doing is just making minimum payments, I'm losing every month. Because my minimum payment will never even scratch the surface, and my debt continues to grow. So somehow you've got to look at what you have and start. And if you're dealing with consumer debt, again, this is just a Dave Ramsey principle, and any financial person, they all say the same thing. It's not anything new, but start with your smallest debt that you have, a consumer debt, and get it paid off. And then don't go out and buy something because I finally got that credit card paid off. Take that and put it to the next smallest debt, till you finally work your way. Your paying power is going up because you're knocking out one more debt. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's just the way it works. But please, 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 do it. Cut back. Find something. Do whatever you have to do to get out from under that, because that noose is only going to get tighter in the years ahead. And if we're not careful, we're just going to find ourselves totally ensnared to the lender. And then we will have no control over our life because they're going to tell us what you're going to do. Proverbs 13:11 says, dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow. There's this mindset that many of us can get pulled into where what I'm looking for, it's kind of like, it's the lottery mentality. What I'm looking for is somewhere there must be a place where a lot of money's going to come in. And then we mix that with improper biblical theology and then start saying God's obligated to do that. Well, he's not. He isn't going to do that any more than I just continue to eat whatever I want and I pray every day to lose weight. Maybe in that if you're mixing prayer and fasting, it might happen. But we don't want to fast either. I just want God to do the quick fix. And God isn't going to do the quick fix. Because he's about maturing me, not turning me into a spoiled little kid who just whines and moans all the time because I don't get what I want. It's like,
I say thank you because we need someone to say it. Someone to say it and call it out because we're all caught in it.
yeah, I have to steward my life. I do it in him, as has already been said. Rodney said that, Jerry said that, others have said that. But I have to steward it. I have to be actively engaged in what is happening in my life. I used to be one of those people that, when I worked for the state in particular, but even being here, I didn't think about my finances till I got my weekly check. And then I thought about my finances. And I didn't pay attention to the fact that on my way to my weekly check, I'm spending money. And in my mind, I would think, I don't know, I got $500. I'm good. I could do this. I do that. And then you get to the end of the week, you get your paycheck, and then you have to think about money for the first time all week, other than what I was spending it on. And I realized, crap, I don't have $500. I just went and checked my bank balance. I've got $11. What happened to my 500? You spent it, idiot. That's where it went. Nobody stole it. You gave it away. And then the more painful part was, and I don't have anything to show for it. I can't even, when you come, go, oh, look what I just bought. I don't even know what I did with it because I went all week never looking at money. If you're going to move in a prosperous mentality, you need to be actively engaged with your money on a daily basis. I'm in our bank accounts every day. I check them every day. I'm making decisions based on that about how I'm going to spend money this week because I know how much I have. And sometimes it doesn't always mean I can't buy it. It just means I can't buy it this week. I may not be able to buy it for 3 weeks. But when I buy it, I've bought it. It's mine. And I don't know anybody interested who's going to give me permission to keep it. Because you do know if you don't pay that stuff, they come and take it back, right? You noticed that? I had a conversation with a guy from Scotland, I don't know, a little while ago. And we got talking about taxes and owning land and kind of that whole thing. So I asked him, I said, so what, because we were talking about, health insurance and their tax structure and so forth. And I said, well, what do you guys pay for property taxes? And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, property taxes. How much does it cost you? I mean, you own several hundred acres. How much does it cost you every year in property taxes? He goes, what are you talking about? I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I don't pay property taxes. It's my land. And I went, what? He goes, it's my land. I don't pay taxes on my land. I'm like, you don't get a bill that says the property taxes are assessed at this amount and they give you a percentage and you have to pay it. He goes, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's my land. I'm like, granted, it's stupid, but I thought everybody did it. He goes, well, do you do that? I'm like, oh, yeah. He goes, what happens if you don't pay it? I said, they take your land away. He goes, well, then you don't own it. If they can take it, you don't own it. He says, nobody can take my land. I said, that'll get you killed in a bundle. I'm like, but we get trained to think in certain terms and then we just go along to go along. Now, I'm not breathing revolution here so much, but it's just this idea that, whatever I owe from a consumer standpoint, if it's not paid for, it is not mine. And they can take it away from me whenever they want. And the only way I can keep them at bay is to keep paying money until I finally pay it off. Now, I have a house mortgage. I get it. I mean, I'm not a purist when it comes to no debt. I just think whatever debt we have, it needs to be minimal. It needs to be very directive. And it should be that whatever debt I'm paying on, that debt should be making me money, not costing me money. So obviously, if you're paying on a mortgage, over time, real estate values go up. And so for me, that makes sense. To go buy a new car makes no sense. I mean, I've only owned one new car in my life, and that convinced me it makes no sense. I don't even buy cars till they're broke in over 100,000. That's my range. Because you know what I've discovered? 4 wheels and a steering wheel and brakes, they'll pretty much get me where I need to go. Now, I like a good stereo. I'm pretty partial to air conditioning. I've become very partial to heated seats. And that heated steering wheel is golden. I don't have to have it to get where I need to go. It's a luxury. It's a nice luxury. If I can afford it, I'll buy it. But I don't have to have it, regardless of what the ad tells me. I don't need it to feel good about me. I feel good about me because of who I am in Him. And Paul said, I can be in times of lack and I can be in times of abundance. But whether I'm in lack or I'm in abundance, my heart is full in Christ.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing. But we've been taught that consumerism is the same thing as wealth, and they're not. Consumerism is basically a lie that they use to keep the masses spending money so that we'll keep working for them at jobs that we don't even like. God's intent is to create wealth and use us to create wealth, but wealth gets created when we're doing what we love doing, and we're doing it because we love it, not because it provides a paycheck. If all I do is work for a paycheck, it's going to be a miserably long life. Because I'm always looking, that paycheck is everything to me. And again, it's kind of coming back even with paychecks. And this was a huge lesson for me years ago when I was working for the state. If you're working at a job and the possibilities of that job are $15 an hour, I don't care how hard you work, job is only going to give $15 an hour. You can't work harder to get more, you're going to get $15. But if $15 an hour isn't enough, what do I need to do? Get a different job. Better yet, figure out what is it I love doing and start doing that. I can tell you that in the years that I've pastored this church, there's been good years and there's been lean years. There's been times I've been able to be here full-time. There's been times, and the majority of them, that I've had to either went somewhere and worked another full-time job and made this the part-time job, or I at least worked a part-time job. And then, as you all know, I mean, for Linda and I, we then also started our own cottage businesses. So because the deal was when I worked for the state, and this is where I learned the lesson, I'm working as a mechanic, this is how much they pay you. At the end of the year, they do a job evaluation, you get evaluated, which didn't amount to anything, because the General Assembly goes, we're doing a 1.5% this year. Everybody gets a 1.5%. The guy that slept 3/4 of the year in the cubicle next to me got a 1.5%. I'm over here working because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I got a 1.5%. Like, didn't take long to figure out that math. I'm not too keen on this. And the only one that really made out was the guy that slept 3/4 of the time in the cubicle next to me. He seemed to love his job. Me, not so much. And the benefits, yeah. But so I went and talked to the HR person, and I said, you know, I'm putting in for all these jobs. I'm trying to get a raise. I got enough rejection notes to wallpaper my house. And I'm still here, and I you know, this isn't. I'm going nowhere. I got a young family. I can't pay the bills. What do I need to do? How do I make more money? Was my question. And she asked me a different question. She says, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. That's an odd question. I mean, I just need a bigger paycheck. Yeah, but what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, she says, well, I can tell you this. If you're going to stay with the state of Delaware, working in maintenance is a dead-end place. If you want to move up, you're going to have to move over to construction. Because in construction is where the jobs are, it's where the better paying jobs are. I'm like, all right. So I just started praying to move to construction. And I got more rejection notices. Praise God. So I went back to her, and I was frustrated because I thought I took her advice, which really I hadn't. So I went back to her and I said, look, Lorraine, I've got 4 more, whatever it was, rejection notices on jobs I've applied for. And she said, well, do you know why that's happening? I would love to know why it's happening. She says, because you look like everybody else. She says, you're no more qualified than any of the other people applying for this job. And then I went for another interview, and that was in the lab in Dover, and the guy did the interview. We talked. He goes, well, you know, I would love to have you working in the lab. And he goes, see this? And there was a stack of applications on his desk. And he goes, see that stack? I said, yep. He says, you happen to be the top one right now, but I've got to do all these interviews. He goes, the problem is you all look alike. He said, you're all equally qualified, equally disqualified. He goes, I don't know what to do. I got to hire 2 people. He goes, I don't even know. Nobody stands out. That made me feel really good. And he goes, so he said, I've made up my mind. He said, I'm going home tonight. So I have a 2-story home. I'm going home tonight. I'm going to stand at the top of the steps, and I'm going to throw them down the steps. And the 2 that make it to the bottom are the 2 I'm hiring. I walked out going, I know I'm not flying. So, and I didn't make it to the bottom because I never got the job. So I go back to Lorraine, still frustrated. And she says, well, you're going to have more education. I mean, that almost made me sick to my stomach. I said, I barely had education the first time through. And now you're talking about going to college? College is where smart people go. There's no way I can go to college. She says, well, I'm just telling you, if you want to change, you're going to have to do that. I know I've told this story before, but it took me 3 tries to even get in Dell Tech far enough to actually talk to somebody. First time I never got out of the car. I was so petrified that I just stood or sat in the car and stared at the door into the school. Second time, I got out of the car, got as far as the foyer, got in the foyer, looked around at all these people carrying books, and they all looked smart to me. And I'm like, I don't belong here. And I walked out and got in the truck and I left. Third time, got out of the truck, got through the door, made it through the foyer, and talked to this lady in admissions. And I said, I think I want to, I think I need to I think I need to go to school. And she says, oh, well, that's great. So glad to see you. She fills all this stuff out. And then she said, well, if you're married, you have 2 kids, you'll qualify for Pell Grant. They just goes, yeah, so basically we can pretty much cover your whole education. And I'm like, yeah, Shabbat. So with that anyway, I went back to school, I got my degree, and before I even finished my degree, I'd already landed 2 new jobs. I had transitioned twice, and I was in construction before I finished my degree, and then the rest took off. If my ceiling is $15, working harder isn't going to change that. So I have to then say, what is it God is doing in me? What does He put in me? What do I love doing? What do I love doing? And then what does that look like? Because, if what I really love doing is testing mattresses, getting a degree in that isn't going to pay any more money. But if my heart is to build something, what generates passion in me, then I start looking at that. Because as I said, in all my years here, I love doing what I'm doing right now. This is my favorite spot of the week. And I love doing this. I love every part of being the senior leader. I love the interactions. Yeah, there's its moments, but overall, I love this. And I've never thought about how much I make. I've never done this because it was a good paying job. Mainly because it isn't. But, but I love it, and so I do it, and I do it with all that's within me. And what I've seen is God in His provision and His providence, because I'm doing what I love, He has been a good provider. And you start to realize, as I read in Proverbs, that for those that think you just need the big splash, and somehow it's the big splash that's going to set you up in life, the big splash is this. You develop wealth little by little, over time, being consistent, being diligent. And so today, I live in a place of wealth creation that was not where I was when I was in my 20s and my 30s. It didn't even really start to shift until I was in my mid-40s. But it shifted nonetheless. God's providence was always with us. We always paid our bills. We were never on the street, all that. But, but it also, you have to look at, what do I need to do to get where it is I think I'm supposed to be? For us, we decided, we're not going to do a mortgage, so we can't really afford a house. Well, here's a great idea. Let's find a barn and move in it. And then we'll make it a house over time. Thankfully, the animals had moved out. We lived with Linda's mom for 1.5 years while I worked every night, every weekend. Everything we did, if I could buy 10 2x4s, that was how much work I did. If we could buy some carpet, that's what we did. Linda's mom was gracious. She wasn't trying to kick us out of that, but we were there, at least a year and a half. But we're working towards something. So there was a day we moved in the barn. The first floor was, I don't know, 75% done. Second floor looked like a barn. Our bedroom was the fold-out couch in the living room. When the kids came along, we hung a blanket to separate, that was our wall, and their 2 cribs were on the other side. So when we went to bed at night, you had to be really quiet, because if the kids knew that you were still awake, Dad? 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 Mom? Mom? Mom! Like, you'd roll over and Linda, I told you to stop breathing. I was like, but you did it. But on a certain day, we sold that house. And that house, when we sold it, there was the expenses that went in it, but we didn't satisfy a mortgage only to take another mortgage. We took all the money from what we sold, and we actually bought our first home, which is where we live now. Now, we have a mortgage on that home, so we didn't pay it all off. But still, we lived in the barn for 22 years. I was still working on it the day we sold it. Actually, Linda would remind me quite often, I don't know why you're so fired up to put the trim on there now. We've been here 22 years, you never put the trim on. I'm like, because I'm selling it. She goes, well, somehow that doesn't make me feel good. It was invisible until I decided to sell the house. And all of a sudden you look around and you go, crap, I got a lot I got to get done. Somehow I was content with it when I was just living there, so I fixed it up for somebody else. Glory to God. So get out of consumer debt. Start asking Holy Spirit for wisdom with what debt you have. Where can I reduce it, and where do I not take on more? We've been convinced in this country, and I'm not really I don't have a problem with it per se, but there's a lot of emphasis put on home ownership. Not everybody needs to own a home. For some of us, renting is the most economical thing we can do. You go, well, yeah, but I'm having to pay this rent. Yeah, but they handle everything. If the hot water heater blows up, you just call the Mr. Landlord, and he fixes it. So it's not that renting, it's not an either-or thing. It's like, what's the wisdom of God here for me in my situation with my economic package that I'm living with? What's the right decision for me? And then the Lord will show us. He'll lead us into those places where we need to go. Everybody okay?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's 12:15. I didn't budget very well.
Talk about time, not money.
Yeah. Yep. Here's a couple quotes, and then we'll land the plane for today. I can't pronounce this gentleman's name, but the book that he wrote is Wealth for All, Living a Life of Success on the Edge of Your Ability. It's a really good book. But this is a quote from him. He says, when money realizes it's in good hands, it wants to stay and multiply in those hands. So what kind of hands do I have? Sometimes I kick against the prick because money doesn't stay, and I blame everybody else, when in fact, money is already determined. My hands aren't ready for it yet. So it just seems to pass through. So what kind of hands What kind of hands do I have? Jim Ron says this: money is usually attracted, not pursued. I'm discovering that right now in Bahamas. Money is being attracted to us. We're not even pursuing it. Now, we've done our piece to be where we are, but all of a sudden money starts rising up, and you're going, wow, I didn't work for it. All I did was prepare a place for it to land. And when I prepared the place for it to land, myself and others, when we got to the point that it was ready, it started to attract the money. I've been doing this for years. So we incorporated in 2016. Only now is it starting to attract money. But in 2016, we didn't have the vehicle for the money to be attracted to. It's taken us this long to develop it. It's had its failures, it's had its discouragements, it's had its frustrations, and it's had its lack. But we kept doing it. We kept doing what we had to do. We kept building the structure. And at a certain point, it started to attract the money. And it started to attract attention. Maya Angelou says this, which goes back to something I said earlier. She says, you can only become truly accomplished at something you love. Don't make money your goal. Instead, pursue the things you love doing. Pursue the things you love doing, and then do them well, that people can't take their eyes off of you when you're doing them. That one really resonated with me because we're actually doing foundations well, foundation builders well. Now, that's not a brag, it's just we are. And all of a sudden, people can't take their eyes off of us. Because what we're offering is hope. And for all of us, whatever we do, if you want to succeed at what you're doing, sow things that reflect the fruit of the Spirit, and it'll attract people every time. So in whatever I do, does it give me the place to give hope away? Does it give me the place to give peace away? Does it allow me to move somebody from injustice to a place of justice? Does it give me the opportunity to help somebody shift from a place of poverty into a different mindset? Do those things, and people will not be able to take their eyes off of you. And it will attract money for you to do what you're going to do, because that's the way God's providence works. But you got to do your part. So for all of us, just stop being lazy. Stop putting it all on God like, well, he just never answers my prayer. Well, no, he's not going to, because you're a spoiled brat. God doesn't reward spoiled brats. He rewards those that diligently pursue him. Now, here's a final thought, and this one I am shutting up on. And this is why we need to get out of debt. Again, this is another guy, I can't pronounce his name. He says, there are few problems in the world that economic prosperity cannot help solve. Yet, the engines of that prosperity are under fierce attack. The forces that seek power over others have gained the upper hand against those who seek freedom. By harming wealth creation, they cause even more strain on society. Historically, this is nothing new. State domination over its subjects has roots that connect statism, totalitarianism, communism, and socialism to more modern-day variants of liberalism and progressivism. It's a constant fight. The way that we get as free as we possibly can is to actually be free. And our first place in freedom is getting economically free. So our money is our money. We get to say where it goes. We get to say what it does. And we get to decide our generosity. Because when somebody else decides my generosity, it's not generosity, it's just a tax. So that's enough for today. So, Father, I just release over this room and those that are represented by this room. Lord, I release over all of us. Let our hearts rise up in you with this place of hope and expectation that your providence is for us, with us, and in us, and that you have prepared paths for us to walk in, that we may be people that generate wealth, but that we might understand why we generate wealth in the first place. Lord, that we don't carry with us a love for money. But what we do carry is a love for you and your kingdom and what money can accomplish to see those things come on the earth. So, Father, I just speak wisdom over each one of us. Help us see where we can make changes. Help us see how to work in our finances on a daily basis. Let each person in this room become a very good manager of the wealth they already have.